The credit monitoring alert hit my phone at 2:47 a.m. Baghdad time, showing a mortgage application I never filed. Master Sergeant Clayton Prescott, 32 years old, Air Force Security Forces, currently deployed to Joint Base Balad in Baghdad, Iraq. 6 months into my second. The notification glowed on my iPhone screen in the darkness of my quarters. Someone had applied for a $340,000 home loan using my Social Security number. The application listed an address in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd never been to Phoenix. The employment verification showed my military service record, but the contact information was wrong. A phone number I didn't recognize. An email address that wasn't mine. I sat up in my bunk. The base was quiet except for the distant hum of generators. My roommate snored 3 feet away. I opened my banking app with shaking fingers. My accounts looked normal. Checking, savings, military pay deposits on schedule. Nothing missing. But the mortgage application was real. Filed yesterday at 3:15 p.m. Mountain Time, while I was running convoy security training in 110-degree heat. I screenshot everything. The application details. The fake contact information. The employment verification that somehow contained accurate details about my schedule and base assignment. Information that should have been secure. My credit score had dropped 43 points overnight. 3 new inquiries from financial institutions I'd never contacted. All within the past week. All while I was 7,000 miles away from American soil. I scrolled through my credit report line by line. Everything else appeared normal. My car loan. My credit card, with the small balance. My military star card. But these new inquiries felt like digital fingerprints, left by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The mortgage application listed 2 dependents. Names I recognized but had never claimed on my military records. Sarah Michelle Prescott, age 28. David Allen Prescott, age 6. Both using Social Security numbers that belonged to real people. People I knew. My ex-girlfriend's name was Sarah Michelle Torres. Her son's name was David Allen Torres. Someone had changed their last names to match mine, and somehow obtained their Social Security numbers. Someone who knew them personally. Someone who had access to their personal information. I checked my military personnel file through the secure portal. My dependency status showed single, no dependents. Exactly as it should be. But someone had used those Social Security numbers to create fake dependents for the mortgage application. The application that claimed I was married with a child. The employment verification letter attached to the mortgage file contained details only someone with access to military records would know. My exact dates. My security clearance level. My commanding officer's name and contact information. Information that wasn't publicly available. I called the mortgage company's fraud hotline. The automated system told me to call back during business hours. I left a message explaining the situation. Deployed military. Identity theft. Fraudulent application. Please investigate immediately. But the damage was already spreading. I could see it in real time through my credit monitoring app. New inquiries. New applications. Someone was using my identity and military status to apply for credit while I was deployed and unable to respond quickly. The worst part was the precision. This wasn't random identity theft. Someone knew my schedule. Someone knew I'd be unreachable for hours at a time. Someone knew exactly when to strike for maximum impact. I stared at the fake dependent names on my phone screen. Sarah Michelle Prescott. David Allen Torres had become David Allen Prescott. The connection was obvious, but the implications made my stomach turn. Only one person had access to both my military information and their Social Security numbers. Sarah Torres and I met 18 months before my SOLEC. She worked at the base commissary, scanning groceries with practiced efficiency. Her son David was 8 years old then. Quiet kid who liked video games and avoided eye contact. I was a master sergeant with the Air Force, stationed at Ramstein before this Baghdad assignment. Sarah seemed different from the other women who hung around military bases. She had her own apartment, her own car. She didn't ask about my pay grade or benefits. We dated for 6 months before I deployed. Nothing serious, but comfortable. She had keys to my apartment for emergencies. I trusted her with my mail, my bills, my life back home. The trust felt natural. Sarah knew military life. Her ex-husband had been Army before their divorce. She understood deployments and communication blackouts. She never complained about missed calls or delayed messages. David warmed up to me slowly. We played Xbox together on weekends. I taught him basic maintenance on my motorcycle. Normal stuff. Nothing that suggested I was being studied, cataloged, prepared for exploitation. 3 weeks into the first warning sign appeared. Sarah called during an unusual time slot. 2:47 a.m. Baghdad time. She sounded nervous. "Clayton, I need to ask you something. Do you remember giving me your social security number?" I was exhausted from a 14-hour patrol. The question seemed random. For what? "I'm trying to remember. Something about emergency contacts, maybe?" I hadn't given her my social security number. Ever. Military personnel don't share that information casually. But I was tired, and the connection was poor, and I let it slide. The second warning came a week later. My bank sent an automated text about a credit inquiry. I called the customer service line during my next communication window. The representative said someone had requested my credit report for a mortgage pre-approval. "I'm deployed overseas," I told her. "I'm not applying for any mortgages." She placed a fraud alert on my account. Standard procedure. But the inquiry had already been processed. Someone had my personal information and knew how to use it. I started monitoring my credit more carefully. The military provides free credit monitoring services for deployed personnel. Smart policy, considering how vulnerable we are to financial crimes while overseas. The monitoring app showed 3 more inquiries over the next 2 weeks. All from different lenders. All for mortgage pre-approvals. Someone was shopping around, testing the waters. I called Sarah during my next scheduled communication window. Asked if she'd noticed anything unusual at my apartment. Any strange mail or unexpected visitors. "Everything's fine here," she said. "Just the usual bills and junk mail." But her voice sounded different. Careful, like she was choosing her words deliberately. I asked her to check my mail more thoroughly. "Look for anything from banks or mortgage companies," she agreed, but I could hear reluctance in her tone. The next day she called back. "There's nothing here, Clayton. Just utility bills and some military correspondence." I knew she was lying. The credit inquiries were real. The mortgage applications were real. Someone was using my identity, and the timing coincided perfectly with I started documenting everything. Screenshots of credit alerts. Recorded phone calls with financial institutions. Timestamps and reference numbers. Military training teaches you to gather methodically. The breakthrough came during a routine security briefing. Our intelligence officer mentioned a new trend in military identity theft. Criminals targeting deployed personnel because we're difficult to reach and slow to respond to fraud alerts. They often use accomplices with personal access to the victim, he said. Someone who can intercept mail, access personal documents, or provide inside information about schedules. The words hit like a physical blow. Personal access. Inside information. Schedules. I thought about Sarah's keys to my apartment. Her knowledge of my military records. Her familiarity with procedures. Her access to David's social security number. That night, I called the mortgage company again. This time, I demanded specific details about the fraudulent application. The customer service representative was initially reluctant, but my military ID and fraud case number convinced her to cooperate. The application listed Sarah Michelle Prescott as my wife, David Allen Prescott as my dependent son, my current address as a house in Colorado Springs that I'd never seen, my income as $89,000 annually, which was accurate to the dollar. The employment verification came from someone claiming to be my commanding officer. The phone number matched our unit's main line, but the signature was forged, and the letterhead contained subtle errors that only someone familiar with military documentation would notice. Someone had studied my records carefully. Someone had access to official military correspondence. Someone who knew exactly how much I earned and when I'd be unreachable. I requested copies of all documentation submitted with the mortgage application. The mortgage company agreed to email everything within 48 hours. The files arrived during my next communication window. I opened them on my laptop in the communications tent, surrounded by other soldiers checking email and calling home. The fake marriage certificate looked authentic. Professional printing, official seals, convincing signatures, but the date was wrong. It showed a wedding ceremony that supposedly occurred while I was in basic training, 3 states away from where the certificate claimed we were married. The dependency documentation was more sophisticated. Someone had created fake birth certificates, social security cards, and school records for David. The social security number matched the real David Torres, but the last name had been changed to Prescott. The most damning was the financial power of attorney, a document that supposedly gave Sarah Michelle Prescott authority to handle my financial affairs while deployed. My signature was forged but skillfully done. Someone had practiced. I stared at the documents on my laptop screen. The hire was overwhelming. Sarah had stolen my identity, created fake dependents, and attempted to secure a mortgage using fraudulent documentation. But the scope of the fraud was larger than I'd initially realized. This wasn't a simple credit scam. Someone had created an entire false family structure, complete with marriage certificates and dependency records. The mortgage application was for $340,000, a house in Colorado Springs near Fort Carson, a military town where a master sergeant's income would easily qualify for that loan amount. I calculated the timeline. The first credit inquiry occurred 3 weeks into my The mortgage application was submitted 6 weeks later. Someone had spent months preparing this fraud, waiting for the perfect opportunity when I'd be unreachable and unable to respond quickly. The realization hit me like incoming artillery. Sarah Torres had been planning this betrayal since before my whore-in, maybe since we'd started dating. Every conversation about my work, every question about my finances, every moment of trust had been preparation for this theft. She'd used her son's social security number, turned an 8-year-old child into an unwitting accomplice in identity fraud, created fake documents that could have destroyed my military career and financial future. The mortgage application had been denied, but only because of a technical error in the employment verification. The forged signature didn't match the commanding officer's actual signature on file, a lucky break that had prevented a $340,000 theft. But Sarah Torres had stolen more than money. She'd stolen 18 months of my life, my trust, and my sense of security. She'd turned every memory of our relationship into of my own stupidity. I closed the laptop and walked outside the communications tent. The Baghdad heat hit me like a wall, but I barely noticed. My hands were shaking, and my chest felt tight. Sarah Torres had betrayed me completely. And she was still living in my apartment, still holding my keys, still pretending to be the loyal girlfriend waiting for my safe return. I needed that would hold up in court. The screenshots and credit reports weren't enough. I needed Sarah Torres to confess, and I needed it recorded. The next morning, I contacted the military legal office. Captain Rodriguez listened to my situation without interruption. Her expression grew darker with each detail I provided. "Master Sergeant Prescott, this is federal identity theft involving military records," she said. "We need to involve civilian authorities immediately." She connected me with Detective Lisa Chen from the Colorado Springs Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Chen had handled dozens of military-related fraud cases. She understood the urgency. "We'll coordinate with Special Agent Anderson from the Treasury Department's Currency Crimes Division," quote, Detective Chen explained during our video call. "This level of fraud requires federal oversight." Special Agent Anderson joined the call 20 minutes later. He was direct and efficient. "Master Sergeant, we need you to make contact with the suspect. Can you arrange a phone conversation without raising suspicion?" I nodded. "She's expecting regular calls. I can set up a recorded conversation." "We'll need specific admissions," Agent Anderson continued. "Details about how she obtained the documents, when she planned the fraud, and confirmation of the amounts involved." The plan was simple. I would call Sarah Torres using the secure military communication system. The call would be recorded by federal agents monitoring from Colorado Springs. I needed to guide the conversation towards specific admissions without alerting her to the investigation. Detective Chen provided a script of key questions. Ask about the mortgage application directly. Mention the Colorado Springs house. Get her to explain how she obtained your military records. The call was scheduled for 1400 hours Baghdad time, 0500 hours Colorado time. Early enough that Sarah would be at home, late enough that she'd be awake. I sat in the communications center, surrounded by federal agents connected via secure video link. My hands were steady, but my heart was racing. This conversation would determine whether Sarah Torres faced federal charges or walked away free. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Clayton, baby, I've missed you so much." Sarah's voice was warm and familiar, the same voice that had whispered promises and declarations of love. "Hey, Sarah, I need to ask you something important." "Of course, anything." I took a breath. I got some strange alerts from my credit monitoring app. Something about a mortgage application in Colorado Springs. "Do you know anything about that?" Silence. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. "Clayton, I can explain everything." Agent Anderson nodded from the video screen. She was about to confess. "I was trying to surprise you," Sarah continued. "I found this perfect house near Fort Carson. I thought when you got back we could start fresh, build a real life together. But Sarah, the application used my son's social security number and forged signatures. I know it looks bad, but I was desperate. I wanted to have everything ready for when you came home. The mortgage broker said it would be easier if I had all the family information. You used an 8-year-old's identity for fraud, Sarah." "It wasn't fraud, Clayton. It was love. I was building us a future." Detective Chen was typing rapidly, documenting every admission. Sarah Torres was confessing to federal identity theft while claiming it was an of love. "How did you get my military records?" I asked. "You left some paperwork in your apartment. I made copies before you deployed. I thought I might need them for emergencies." "Paperwork with my dependents' social security numbers?" "Yes, but Clayton, you have to understand. I did this for us. For our future together." Agent Anderson signaled for me to continue. We needed more specific details. "Sarah, the mortgage application was for $340,000. That's not a surprise. That's theft. I know the amount seems high, but houses near military bases are expensive. I researched everything. Your salary could handle the payments." "My salary?" "Sarah, you forged my signature on federal documents. I practiced your signature for weeks. I wanted it to be perfect." The confession was complete. Sarah Torres had admitted to identity theft, document forgery, and mortgage fraud, all recorded by federal agents. "Clayton, please don't be angry. I love you. I did this because I love you. Sarah, I need you to pack your things and leave my apartment, today." "What?" "Clayton, no, we can fix this. I can cancel the application." "It's too late for that." I ended the call. Agent Anderson was already coordinating with local law enforcement. Sarah Torres would be arrested within 2 hours. Detective Chen called me back 30 minutes later. "Master Sergeant, we have enough for federal charges, identity theft, wire fraud, and forgery. She's looking at 5 to 10 years. The arrest happened at 0800 hours Colorado time. Sarah Torres was taken into custody at my apartment building. She was charged with 3 federal felonies and held on $50,000 bond. The investigation revealed additional victims. Sarah had attempted similar frauds against 2 other deployed service members she'd met through dating apps. Both cases were still in progress when she targeted me. Agent Anderson kept me updated throughout the legal proceedings. Sarah Torres eventually pleaded guilty to avoid trial. She received 4 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $15,000 in restitution for the credit damage and investigation costs. The military legal office helped me secure my financial accounts and repair my credit. The fraudulent inquiries were removed within 60 days. My security clearance remained intact. But the real victory came 6 months later. Agent Anderson contacted me about a new case. Another deployed soldier had been targeted by a similar fraud scheme. The perpetrator was using the same methods Sarah Torres had developed. "Master Sergeant Prescott, would you be willing to help us train other service members about these fraud tactics?" I agreed immediately. Over the next year, I helped develop a financial security briefing for deploying troops. The program identified red flags and prevention strategies for military-specific identity theft. The briefing became mandatory for all deploying personnel at my base. Other installations requested copies. We estimated the program prevented dozens of similar frauds. Sarah Torres had stolen 18 months of my life and nearly destroyed my financial future. But her betrayal had also created an opportunity to protect other service members from the same fate. Justice had been served, but the real satisfaction came from turning her betrayal into protection for others. 12 months later, I was back stateside. Fort Carson felt different now. Quieter. The mountains looked the same, but I wasn't the same person who'd left for Baghdad 2 years ago. My apartment was smaller this time. 1 bedroom. No extra space for anyone else's belongings. The lease was in my name only. I'd learned that lesson. The financial security briefing had expanded beyond Fort Carson. 18 military installations now used our fraud prevention program. Agent Anderson estimated we'd prevented over 40 cases of military identity theft in the past year. The numbers mattered, but the individual stories mattered more. A Navy petty officer in Norfolk avoided a $12,000 credit card fraud because she recognized the warning signs. An Army specialist in Germany caught suspicious activity on his credit monitoring app before any damage occurred. Each prevented case felt like a small victory against Sarah Torres and people like her. My credit score had fully recovered. 780. Higher than before the fraud. The financial institution had removed all traces of the fraudulent accounts. My security clearance review came back clean. But I still checked my credit report every week. Old habits. The restitution payments arrived monthly. $312.50 for 48 months. Sarah Torres was paying from her prison commissary job. The money went into a separate savings account. I planned to donate it to a veterans financial assistance program when the payments finished. Agent Anderson had been promoted to supervise the military fraud task force. She still sent updates about similar cases. The problem was growing, but so was awareness. I'd started dating again. Carefully. Background checks weren't romantic, but they were necessary. Trust would take time to rebuild. The YouTube channel had been Agent Anderson's suggestion. Master Sergeant, you have credibility. Other veterans will trust. Use it. I launched a YouTube channel reviewing vetted finance apps for veterans. The subscriber count was growing slowly. 15,000 followers who wanted honest financial advice from someone who'd been burned. The videos were simple. No fancy editing. Just straight talk about credit monitoring, banking security, and fraud prevention. Comments came from service members worldwide sharing their own close calls and success stories. The channel wasn't making money yet, but that wasn't the point. Every view represented a potential fraud prevented. Every subscriber was another service member who might recognize the warning signs before it was too late. Sarah Torres would be released in 3 years. I'd moved twice since her arrest. She wouldn't find me again. The betrayal had cost me 18 months of peace and nearly destroyed my financial future. But it had also revealed something important about resilience and purpose. Some wounds heal stronger than the original tissue. The evening routine was simple now. Check the security system. Review the day's credit monitoring alerts. Answer YouTube comments from veterans asking questions about financial security. Then silence. Real silence. Not the hollow quiet of betrayal, but the earned peace of someone who'd survived and helped others do the same. The mountains outside my window caught the last light of day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to protect fellow service members from predators like Sarah Torres. Tonight, though, was mine. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.